Hey guys, welcome to Coast. If you have been hearing about the US debt ceiling crisis and wondering what on earth that is, don't worry. In today's video, we will break it down for you. Now, if you borrow money, you have to pay it back. It's that simple. But if your income isn't growing fast enough, you will be in a spot of bother. You will have to juggle your daily expenses along with repaying the principal and interest on your loans. And sometimes the only way out is to borrow more money just to repay the old loans. It can be a vicious cycle. This can happen to countries too. That's why the US has a rule in place to keep this sort of debt binge in check. The government has a hard stop on how much money it can borrow. This is called the debt ceiling. It's the limit on borrowing more money just to meet some previous obligations, such as government salaries, pensions, and even the interest on the current debt. The ceiling exists to prevent the country from going into that vicious cycle, which brings us to today. See, the problem with US is they are already at the ceiling, which means they can't borrow more money. They will have to hope that their tax revenues are good enough for now. But if it isn't, well, they will default on loans, and then all hell will break loose. Because when a country defaults on debt, people stop trusting it. They will hesitate to lend more money. And if they do, they will demand sky high interest rates as a precaution. It hurts the country finances even further. People with mortgages will see their interest rates rise. They have to shell out $130,000 more as payments. 3 million jobs could be lost, and the overall debt burden could rise by a staggering $850 billion. All this money could have been invested in improving healthcare or education, but that won't happen. Sounds quite scary, right? But hold on. Before you run out screaming that the US is in the middle of a financial calamity, let's put your mind to ease. We are not there yet. See, this isn't the first time that the US is in throes of such a crisis. In fact, you won't believe this. Since 1978, they have actually tweaked the ceiling at least every 9 months. How else do you think that the limit soared from a $1 billion when it was introduced first in 1917 to a whooping $31.4 trillion now? Basically, each time the US government was in danger of hitting this self imposed ceiling, they simply modified it. So just remember that this matter everyone is fretting about is way more common than you think. Politicians typically bicker over it to prove a point, but they will finally come to their senses and they'll simply kick the debt down the road. Because, let's face it, no one really wants to default, right? It would be pretty embarrassing for the US. So, the question really is, will this time be different? Well, we don't know. All we can say is that people seem to be a bit more worried than usual because the presidential elections are looming next year. That means politicians are trying to one up each other and they may leave logic at the door. For instance, right now the Republicans have agreed to an increase in the ceiling, but with strings attached. They want the Democrats who are in power to promise to cut back on spending on renewable energy and social welfare schemes for the poor. And the president is saying he won't budge on his principles. So we have to wait and see what this comes to. In the meantime, we have decided to dig some quirky solutions ourselves. Just in case the politicians behave like toddlers and throw a tantrum. For starters, maybe the government can play around with a premium bond. See, Bloomberg's Matt Levine pointed out a loophole in case there's an impasse. A government bond consists of two bits, the principal and the interest. And apparently, only the principal will be considered to be a part of this debt ceiling, not the interest. So, let's imagine there's a debt ceiling of $100. Now, the government can issue a $100 bond and promise to repay it within a year. It will pay an interest of 5% too. But once this is done, it has already hit the ceiling. It can't borrow more. But say it wants to borrow $200 without breaching the $100 limit. What can it do? Well, maybe it can do something really crazy. It can issue a premium bond and say, look, we will sell you a $100 bond, but we will give you an interest of 110%. and at the end of the year, we will give you $210 back. So, in effect, the face value of bond is just $100. Interest $110. That's the structure. But the government will only sell it to you for $200. So technically, they haven't breached the limit because the debt ceiling only counts the face value of the bond and not the sum that investors pay to acquire the bond. And the government can laugh its way back to the bank and use additional $100 to repay the existing debt. Also, they can keep doing this every time they are very close to reaching the limit. The debt ceiling becomes irrelevant. Yes, we know, it sounds insane and too far fetched to happen. But who knows, right? The world is a crazy place sometimes. Remember when the oil prices went to negative territory in 2020? The other gimmick is a magical $1 trillion coin. Yup, there's another loophole here. See, the US government's hands are tied by the prevailing law when issuing money. This includes paper money as well as coins such as gold, silver, and even copper. But the law missed including platinum. That means Joe Biden can simply ask the US Treasury, which handles all these money matters, to mint the coin, a $1 trillion coin made of platinum, and deposit it with the central bank. And they can borrow money against that if they want to. Poof! The debt ceiling problem is solved. In theory, this could solve the problem temporarily because sooner or later they'll hit the limit again. The only problem is that this will make US look pretty bad. It's like government coming in and printing new money. Technically, that's the Fed's job, the US central bank. And if investors get the sense that government is meddling in this very scared process, they will be wary of investing in the country altogether. This would only make bad situation even worse. So, in summary, there are three ways to solve the US debt ceiling crisis. First is increase the debt limit, second is issue premium bonds, and the third is mint the damn $1 trillion coin. Hence, the problem is solved. Hope you liked the video. Do comment down your thoughts below and do like, share, and subscribe if you found this video informative.